For the discussion now, I'm going to be looking at two large and well-detailed models which are on my up-and-coming list. The one being the Typhoon, and the other one being, which I don't have the box top right now with me, but it's the P-47N by Trumpeter. The size equivalence is somewhat close. Obviously the Typhoon is bigger and has more to it, but the 1/32 Trumpeter kit is pretty detailed and is a pretty chunky model. Now, with the recent discussion relating to accuracy, when it's somewhat obvious that the kit doesn't look right, then it warrants some investigation. On neither of these two kits do I need to do any investigation, and neither does it particularly matter, and I'll tell you why. So with this P-47N, I know it's a very nicely detailed kit. I know it's, it's overall, it's a pretty good quality kit. There may be small inaccuracies, and it doesn't really matter because I have a specific end presentation view that's in my mind. It's a particular aircraft of which I saw photos recently. It's a current P-47 that's flying, which is very nicely done, and I want to reproduce that. And it's not going to matter if my model has minor kit creation inaccuracies, because no one's ever going to know that. So in this case, my end result is purely that visual impression, and that's what I'll achieve. It's a very nicely detailed kit. When it's completed, it'll be probably one of my best aircraft ever, if not my most impressive visual build ever yet in my life. The Typhoon, I trust Airfix to have done a well enough job on that. It's a nicely detailed kit, which we're going to look at shortly. And there, that's a bit different. I don't have one specific end presentation goal. I will choose one of these schemes provided, but I'm building it for the aircraft. So I'm building a very nicely presented Typhoon. So the two kits have got a different approach, but in both cases, I'm building all the detail. I'm building much of what the kit has. One thing I'm leaving out is all of the stores. I'm not putting stores onto the P-47, and I'm not putting them onto the Typhoon. I just don't feel that I need to as part of the presentation, and I'm a purist for the airframes. Okay. How will I approach this P-47? So the one thing I do is I de-sprue everything, as I do with a lot of my models, or all my models. So, and I make certain decisions about it. Not putting that in. I'm not having anything open. I want this beautiful aircraft. This one will be standing on the ground, undercarriage down, possibly flaps down. Does it have flaps? It does on the kit. It is quite a lot of stuff to do. This model has got a lot for the engine. And amazingly, it has I kid you not, 4 propeller options, which is quite nice in the sense that it allows you to build exactly the variant that you want. So that, I mean, that's a little bit of plastic out the way there. We've got a lot of exhaust stuff. We have got, you know, if you actually separate it, and that's what I will be doing, if you put all the engine parts into a separate box so that you can actually see what you've got to do for the airframe, you can possibly separate the undercarriage out, identify all of the cockpit and internal parts. So this is part of the ducting inside. So that'll be the next step that I do on this, is subdivide into categories of what needs to be built at what stages, starting with all of the internals so that I can get fuselage halves together. Once fuselage halves are together, that's a first big step. The engine, I already know, is quite a lot of work, and there's only one place to start, and that's just starting to get halves together, and all of these tappet covers on, painted. There's quite a lot on the internals, and it all looks very, very nicely detailed. I haven't looked at the cockpit, but I will be doing a nice cockpit on this one. It will be covered up to a large degree, so I'll take nice photos of that. So P-47, the approach is, as I'm sure is completely regular for most, all modelers, is get it into its areas and start cleaning parts ready for gluing of halves. I will be closing up that, so that's a first stage. I will be looking at undercarriage bays and, you know, painting that before assembly, I guess. Yes, because once you've got that on, you have far less, so there'll be painting. You've got painting of these flap areas. I will be looking at what needs to be done on the inside of the fuselage. It doesn't look like there's much to pay attention to on the sides, so we'll see. I'll look at that cockpit layout and break this down into its areas, into its sort of sub-assembly. They're not quite sub-assemblies, but you get the point. I very, very much like this particular P-47. So there's nice cockpit detail, but I'm not going to do research on, you know, there'll be no extras being done to this kit because you're not going to know it. If I put a little bit of extra into the cockpit, you'd never know it. That one is destined to have a very, very nice photo shoot done for it. You know, all the angles, try and put it onto that little rotating stand, get very interesting lighting, maybe interesting background. I don't do that a whole lot, but that model is, to be honest, probably this one as well, simply because they're so impressive, is destined for that. Okay, with the big Typhoon, the first thing, and there's so much plastic, there's just so much plastic. I'm separating all of the weapons sprues, and I don't need them to be present. I'm not going to be putting them on at all. I'm happy to pass these on to any modeler who wants a whole bunch of extra Typhoon stuff. Very nice rockets. You know, they've done a very nice job of all of the weapons, and one almost feels like it's a shame not using it. Actually, I want to compare Spitfire wingspan to this one. Now this one doesn't have those outer sections on it. I'll just see if I can find that. Whoops, without letting this box tip off the table. So let's just check this complete wingspan. Compared to the Spitfire, give you a bit of an idea on the scale. So, you know, of course the Spitfire is a small aircraft, so it's bigger than a Spitfire, as of course we all know. I do like Airfix's surface detailing. If you haven't seen this, and will this come through on the camera? You can just see it there. It's not just a flat surface. They have given a skin undulation. Now they've got it wrong, unfortunately. Well, when I say they've got it wrong, they've tried to produce something on the plastic which doesn't occur quite in that way or in those areas on the real aircraft, but it's nice nonetheless that they attempted that. So that would be an example of where the kit designer has found aspects on a real aircraft to reproduce on the kit and applied them in general rather than on the specific areas which they actually occur. Now luckily this doesn't detract. In fact, it probably adds to the model, and it's you can tell that they're there. It's even right out to these edges, whereas I'm absolutely willing to bet that the Typhoon doesn't have any of that right over there, but it may have it in some areas on the kit. On the actual aircraft. So with the Typhoon, after separating out and trying to see how much, and you honestly can't believe how much plastic there is. It is just so much stuff. So this is where this kit is just more than double of what you have to deal with in a 1/32 kit. The amount of internals is just staggering. Look at those huge wheels. You have got these This is the cockpit side frames, which then fix onto the spar frames. Now this is part of what I was saying in the other video, that very nicely detailed parts, they do get built into the aircraft in such a way that you see somewhat only a small percentage of this, and all of this can be built as a separate model, but it would then require you to replace equivalent bits of this inside the wing out of plastic, sheet plastic, if you wanted to do that. Haven't quite made up my mind how much I'm I said I was going to keep the engine out of this one because I want it closed. So engine comes out. I'll take a good look at that again, and I'll decide whether I take out the entire cockpit and frames assembly, or what options there are for displaying the cockpit separately, or just build it all in and be done with it and just have the engine as a separate model. But I do feel like it's a, it's a lot of stuff that could be a nicely separately presented piece. Now they've got a 3-blade and a 4-blade, and I can't see the 3-blade option right now. Where's that? I'm not sure if I've put that somewhere or what. You see, unless they're exactly the same blades, in which case you only use 3 of them. I'm not sure. So there's the 3-blade hub, and there's the 4-blade hub. It might be that it's just the same blades rather than a different diameter. Now there's the inevitable. Are you going to be able to see this? Sink marks. Okay, so you see the sink mark there, there, there. Okay, so even on there, there's one. So an absolute, you know, this is an extremely recent kit, and I'll be surprised if they haven't also got this on the Spitfire. I must admit, I'm getting more keen for that 1/24th Spitfire, the new one. But even on this, they can't escape getting sink marks because of thick plastic, which one can understand because that's the nature of how plastic cools down. But could production methods have been adjusted to not have that? Because what does that now mean? It means that is the same old work that the modeler needs to do on a modern expensive kit compared to old Airfix, which means, you know, and it's no problem, that's modeling. But one sort of imagines one would have moved to a more developed process to not have that. So I've got 3 out of 4 sink marks on the lower surface and 1 out of 4 on the upper surface. Well, and it's the same blade. So the blade that doesn't have it on the lower surface has it on the upper surface. So you've got 4 blades to fix there. Not a big deal. It's just would have been nice if your new expensive kit didn't have that. You sort of get spoiled when you're talking about the big stuff. You see that Napier Sabre engine, oh, you're going to see this through there on the back trays there, those heads, very, very nice. The engine on this is an absolute work of art in itself. And so that's what I'll be separating. All engine parts get separated. All cockpit parts get separated. Looking at the internals and finding out how one can build it, not including a bunch of stuff. Now I need to be careful because my habit of de-spruing and having absolutely so much stuff, I need to do bagging and boxing so that I'm not going to lose parts here. So on this surface, which I don't know if the light might just catch that, the designer has gone and instead of having that smooth sheet metal surface, they have gone and given undulations. That is not what you would see on a horizontal stabilizer. So it's a nice aspect that they wanted to introduce on the aircraft. Here's more there. It's a nice aspect, but the way they've handled it is you know, not quite scale. And one can understand that. I mean, the designers are just not people that are around aircraft all day and have seen. Well, It's not always the easiest to see on pictures. You sort of have to have been close up to aircraft. How can I get this one visual? No, that one's... So they've got that effect all over here, which is not bad. It's not bad. I'm not going to complain about that. It's just it's interesting. Now, while I was watching the Spitfire video, the designers did not include a pilot figure in the Spitfire, but what they did, which it's actually very good to know that, it's quite an interesting thing, is they hired a sculptor, which apparently cost Airfix quite a deal, who sculpted a 1/4 scale, and they then scanned it and scaled it down of this. This is the result of a sculptor sculpting a pilot figure at great expense, and I must say this is very nice. It is worth me doing that pilot figure and putting him inside this Typhoon, if not actually displaying him as a model on his own. So I'll be again all the weapons stuff, all the external stores and rails and everything. Not interested in. I want the pure airframe. The gun nozzles, obviously. What do you call them? The gun tubes. They will be in, of course. Undercarriage down. Yes, because this aircraft looks pretty good undercarriage down. Would be nice to see it in flight. I mean, I'm open to discussion on that one. It does have very, very nice lines clean, as it is in that picture. Give your thoughts on that one. I'm thinking at the moment I'm more tending towards undercarriage down, even though the only place this model is going is hanging from the ceiling. For this kit, the decal options were something that I did not consider at all. Doesn't matter. I'm just using I'll choose one out of there. Maybe the one with the teeth. I'm not sure. Probably looks like a nice option. With the P-47, I did look at the decals, and I virtually chose the kit because of decals. So yeah, quite different approaches in what I was doing there. Now I'd like to get away from this huge. I can't even move this box into the hobby room. It just takes up so much space. I need to break up into subsections. Get a box for airframe parts only, get a box for engine only, and so on and so on. Put them in smaller boxes, cut the box art out, put it on the wall, and be able to work. So it's sort of making it more manageable for both kits, P-47 and Typhoon. And once I've got manageable sections, I can actually make headway. Otherwise, this would just stay in the box, the same as what happened with my F-14s. Which is somewhat unfortunate that I didn't actually end up building a Tamiya F-14, but it may still happen on this channel one day. But I think this model and that P-47 will make very, very nice content for this channel and be two of my, if not my absolute two, best built aircraft ever. The P-47 is the much faster, much easier one, but it's still got a fair bit of work. Okay, so give your thoughts on the undercarriage on the Typhoon. It's got the one prop. You know, I'm also open to actually not even including the prop blades. It's, you know, there's two thinkings on that. When I showed you the Mustang with the just the spinner all closed up, it actually looks quite nice, and it does give you that feeling of speed and the motion. I'm gonna look at pics of this, and I'm gonna see what I think. But I'm open to the idea of actually taking one of these spinners, just closing it up, and then using the prop on the engine model. Another point to discuss. Okay, so that's sort of the initial plans on both of these kits, and I sort of need to do that pretty soon, if not today. I am working on that little Bren carrier, universal carrier, but this is something I can get to today as well. Okay, anyway, hope you enjoyed that. Cheers, happy modeling.